Hi, this is Finance and Investing, just Joey style, and don't mind my eyes. It's a little bit early in the morning. I'm still kind of tired, but I want to talk to you about Bitcoin's use case. I've had some pretty in-depth conversations with a lot of people about Bitcoin, and I keep hearing this argument that Bitcoin doesn't have a use case, and it drives me freaking crazy because it does, and I'm going to prove it. So I've been working on an article. I've been working on some different things as to why and what Bitcoin is and why it has a use case, and it's a massive one. So yeah, Bitcoin does have a use case, and it's very very big. So this is Bitcoin's use case. Is the first. I'm just gonna read my article out here because the thing that you need to understand is the settlement layer. Settlements, not payments, and also another argument I've had is like digital cashless. I've heard the cashless argument. A society doesn't have to be cashless for crypto to thrive. Crypto is financial efficiency. So banks, countries, businesses, what do they like? What do they need? Efficiency, financial efficiency. So that's what Bitcoin is. That's what crypto in general is financial efficiency. It makes everything else run more efficiently on its blockchain layers because of trust. And I'm going to explain some of that. This is mostly about Bitcoin. I'm going to cover some stablecoin stuff real quick too, just because there's some confusion. There was a little bit of confusion on my own end. Anyhow, it's the first global neutral instant financial settlement layer in human history. Most people are arguing against Bitcoin are stuck on the wrong layer. They're comparing Bitcoin, the base settlement layer, to something like Visa, a consumer payment network. And there's a big difference because a transaction is different than a settlement. The payment is a message, and I'll explain that in a minute. Um, so comparing Bitcoin's settlement layer to Visa's payment network is like comparing the Federal Reserve wire transfers to Venmo, the SWIFT settlements to Apple Pay, and interbank final settlements to a debit card swipe. They're not they're not comparable systems. They're two completely different things. Now, a lot of people don't know the intricacies of how things work in the financial world, and that's fine. This is why retail has a hard time grasping what this is, especially in this country too, because it's also, well, there's some like authoritarian things that Bitcoin helps with too. Anyhow, I'm going to continue. They operate at different layers. They they operate at different layers of global financial stack. Bitcoin's use case is not to replace your Starbucks transaction. Its use case is to replace the slow, permissioned, geopolitical, fragile global settlement architecture underneath everything. That's very important. It's it's the layer that everything settles on. It's outdated and slow. Bitcoin solves the hardest problem in finance: final settlement across borders. Today, global settlement is slow, 1 to 5 business days. Business days, that's important. Fragmented, SWIFT, CHIPS, Target2, Fedwire. I'll explain those in a minute. Permissioned, banks, governments, intermediaries. Unreliable during crises, so frozen assets, sanctions, debanking, liquidity freezes. These are the problems that Bitcoin helps solve. Expensive. It's expensive. FX spreads, correspondent banks, capital controls. There's a lot of middlemen in the current settlement process. That's why everything takes so long, because there is no trust. All right. Bitcoin settles globally in roughly 10 minutes. On weekends, no correspondent banking layer, no geographic restrictions, no permission required, full transparency, and verifiable finality. There is nothing in human history that has offered this. Nothing. So Bitcoin is the first globally synchronized monetary network. Think about this. We Each country has their own settlement networks, their monetary networks. So every existing financial network is national. The Fedwire is for the United States. CHAPS is for the UK. Target2 EU. CIPS, CIPS for China. SWIFT is messaging only, not settlement. That's very important. There was a part when I started to really get into this that I didn't understand what SWIFT was. SWIFT is just a messaging system. That's why there's other cryptos like XRP, XLM, HBAR, Algo that are ISO 222 compliant for the messaging side so that the messages are faster, not settlements. So that's why different cryptos do different things, just like businesses. All right. Each runs on a nation state server with nation state rules tied to nation state currency. Bitcoin is global, not national. Sovereignty, agnostic, borderless, always on, open source, audible, and neutral. This makes it the first and only truly global value settlement protocol, similar to how TCP and IP become the global standard for moving information. Bitcoin is the TCP/IP of money. Bitcoin enables final settlement without trusting any government or bank. This is very important to understand. The trust. Okay, U.S. doesn't trust China. Russia doesn't trust anybody. I mean, we might have allies, and there's allies, but there's at the end of the day, with power struggles, nobody trusts anybody. The trust. That's why things take so long, because so many people have to verify the transactions because nobody trusts anybody. On blockchain, it's simply a ledger. I don't have to trust somebody to say that it's sunny outside. I can literally just look out the window and go, it's sunny outside. And I'm trusting that. I don't have to trust somebody else. Bitcoin is the trust because it's information that can't be altered. Blockchain, it's a ledger. I write down the number 5 on this piece of paper. That's it. The number 5. Nobody else has to trust that. That's what that is. Anyhow, I'm just going to keep reading this. Now, Bitcoin enables final settlement without trusting any government or bank, the trust layer. Before Bitcoin, global settlements required trusting central banks, trusting governments. Anybody trust the government that much? Or bank? Trusting correspondent banks, trusting clearinghouses, trusting regulators, and trusting that none of these parties get compromised, corrupted, or politically weaponized. This is why this is very important that Bitcoin is neutral. There's no political agenda. There's no corruption. Bitcoin doesn't care who gets what money. It just knows it's got to go here or there. Bitcoin eliminates the trust problem entirely. There's no human adjudication, no political override, no centralized issuer, no one can freeze or reverse a transaction. Final settlement is cryptographic, not political. This is a breakthrough on the scale of double entry accounting. Bitcoin is unseizable, uncensorable, and neutral, a once per civilization innovation. The global financial system is increasingly used as a geopolitical weapon. Sanctions, asset freezes, bank account seizures, capital controls, political censorship, deplatforming, financial surveillance. Bitcoin is the first asset in history with these combined properties: digital, scarce, transferable globally without permission, and not controlled by any nation or entity. For companies, institutions, and countries outside the US or China, this neutrality is not optional. It's a survival mechanism. This is why nation states are accumulating Bitcoin. This is where I was talking about authoritarian regimes. There's a lot of countries that are under authoritarian regimes. Bitcoin allows you to control your own money without your government controlling it. And that's very important across the globe. That's hard for United States citizens to understand because we don't have that gigantic issue. We can pretty much do what we want and people are still mad. Anyhow, corporations are placing it on balance sheets. The world is slowly standardizing around it as a reserve asset. When it cracked 100 grand, that's when the world went, okay, what is this thing? Bitcoin is emerging as a neutral collateral for a multipolar world. Bitcoin already functions as a global settlement rail today. People misunderstand Bitcoin because they look at a consumer app rather than exchanges, custodians, OTC desks, remittance markets, mining pools, large inter exchange transfers, lightning enabled settlements, and cross border treasury movements. The majority of billion-dollar Bitcoin transfers today are settlement transactions between institutions, not retail payment rails. Right there. This is one of the most important things that people don't get. They're not the retail payments. They're not the credit card swipes. Those are transactions. It's the settlement between institutions. And that is an insanely massive market. There's about $1 quadrillion in the world, and most of that moves somewhere every day. Bitcoin is already settling trillions annually, moving more value globally than Western Union, competing with Visa in raw settlement volume, not transaction count, and used by banks and exchanges as a back end rail. It's becoming the backbone of global liquidity, even if the average person doesn't see it. That is so important. This is why you got to go deep with this stuff. And then once you get that deep dive, you don't have to know anything else. And I'm going to explain why other coins, other blockchains are important too. Bitcoin's monetary policy makes it the hardest collateral ever invented. Settlement layers require strong collateral. Gold used to play this role. But gold is heavy, slow, difficult to verify, difficult to transport, easy to confiscate, and expensive to secure. Fiat currencies, they're politically controlled, they're inflated and debased over time. Bitcoin is programmatically scarce, infinitely divisible, so you can break it down as low as you need it to, verifiable instantly, transportable globally in minutes, impossible to dilute, and incredibly secure. Bitcoin has one heck of a use case. This makes it the ultimate collateral asset for global settlement layer. Use case. Huge, massive use case. Bitcoin finally gives the world a unified, neutral, instant trust minimized settlement layer. This is not about coffee transactions. It's about the rails beneath the entire global economy. I'm going to read this sentence again. It's about the rails beneath the entire global economy. Bitcoin is basically what the cornerstone of the new financial system is going to be propped up on. Very important. Bitcoin is the first global monetary network, the first decentralized settlement system, the first digitally native, programmatically scarce asset, the first neutral political independent collateral, and the first system offering cryptographic finality globally. It's the base layer. Everything else will eventually build on top of it, just like the internet. Bitcoin is the internet of the financial world. It's super, super important. Okay, and I want to talk to you quickly about like stable coins. Let's see, let me find it. So you got to think deep. You got to think about the settlement, not the transaction. So, so here's a real quick thing about the transaction. This is why settlement is different from a transaction message. So a transaction message equals a request. Settlement equals the final result. Transaction message request, settlement, final result. So payment message would be basically saying, hey, bank, Joey wants to send $5,000 to Sarah. That's the message. But nothing is actually moved yet. So there's just a notification that says this money needs to be moved from here to here. Then once it settles, that's the settlement layer. That's what the average person doesn't understand or see is the settlement layer. They just see the message. So that's just a notification, a promise or an instruction, a request. This is what Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Cash App, ACH, and even Swift do. They send messages, not actual money. So settlement is the actual money movement, the final transfer of ownership. Now this, I'm going to tie stable coins into this. Settlement is when balances change, ledgers update, risk is removed, and the transaction becomes final and irreversible. Final. This usually means, so here's the layers. Your bank, their bank, the clearinghouse, the central bank, possibly multiple correspondent banks, currency FX providers, and reconciliation teams. All must validate the transaction before it is considered complete. That's why things take so daggone long to settle. That's why when you close on a house, they're like, yeah, we'll close on this in 30 days because 8 million people have to go do something to verify all the information. Blockchain, crypto, takes all those extra layers and says, let's just do this quicker, faster, and more trustworthy. So that's why settlement takes days. Lots of intermediaries get involved. Banks require trust and verification. Reversals happen. Fraud checks are needed. Accounts get frozen because the entire system is trust based, not algorithmic. Think about that. So Bitcoin's breakthrough. Let's see here. I don't know if I don't want to talk about that. I think I already basically talked about this. Bitcoin combines the messaging and the settlement in one single action. When you broadcast a Bitcoin transaction, the network validates it, confirms it, finalizes it, and settles it globally, all in the same process. There's no request, no pending, no ACH windows, FX delays, or human reconciliation. It's a final global, irreversible, and trustless. And it does it in 10 minutes instead of 2 to 5. But here's where stable coins kind of jump in. So stable coins are, people have they don't understand them. And I didn't fully understand them myself. That's why I deep dived. I understood enough of what they do, but now I understand them even more. So this is how stable coins fit into the settlement layer discussion. Stable coins kind of right on top of the settlement layer. They're not the settlement layer themselves. So stable coins are the token. They're the IOU. They're the dollar. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, they have settlement layers the token runs on. So the blockchain. Stable coins only settle as fast as the blockchain they live on. So USDC is Ethereum, USDT is Tron, another USDC is Solana, Bitcoin, so on and so forth. Stable coins inherit the settlement layer beneath them. They do not create their own. So like I said, stable coin is just a placeholder, but the settlement layer is the blockchain that they run off of. So Ethereum and Solana are settlement layers too. I believe XRP is. They're not just messaging. XRP is one of the most intriguing tokens because it kind of does a little bit of everything. Anyhow, stable coins settle faster because the blockchain settles faster, not because the stablecoin itself has magic settlement powers. This is the part many people misunderstand. Stablecoins are just claims on dollars held by a company. Circle, Tether, those claims move on a blockchain that provides the speed, the trustlessness, the verification, and the finality. So it's the blockchain that provides all of this use case. So that's why we invest into the blockchain because of the use case it provides to the world. So, yes, Bitcoin and Ethereum, Solana, they're all settlements, but they do different things. Some are more secure, some are slower, some are faster, some have different properties. That's why owning multiple of them is important for an investment because they will all kind of work in tangent, and some people will use Bitcoin's network, and some people will use Ethereum's network, some people will use Solana's network, some people will use different things for different stuff. Um, can stable coins be used for settlement? Yes, but only because they run on the blockchain and act as a settlement layer. Stablecoins are excellent for cross-border transfers, treasury operations, on-chain money markets, inter-exchange transfers, remittances, and international settlements. That is huge for the world. That's why I'm very big on stablecoins. And right now, most stablecoins run off of Ethereum. Now, that'll change, but you got to stick where most things are working now. So that's why I love Ethereum, because of the use case it's going to bring into the financial world. Right here. So as I was doing my research, one of the things that I was thinking about, I said, I had written it down. The settlement is actually when the monies are officially in the other place and verified. And that's true. Let's see here. Okay, so if you're still maybe a little confused, the ultimate are messaging layers. Messaging layers are Venmo, Visa, Cash App, PayPal, Swift. They send requests, not money. No settlement. It's just the message for the settlement to happen. So that's why they're important. So that's why I like some of these smaller projects like HBAR, XLM, things like that, because they're going to act as the messaging layers that are more efficient than what we have now. Traditional settlement layers are Fedwire, chips, correspondent banks, and central banks. They move money slowly because trust must be verified by many intermediaries. That's why it takes so long, the verification process. Bitcoin. It combines the messages plus the settlement in one, final, global, trustless, no middlemen, no reversals, no politics, no delays. Stablecoins are not settlement layers. They're the dollar, the IOUs, riding on the settlement layers. Settlement speed equals the speed of the blockchain they run on. So that's the difference. And that's why everything is important. And this was why crypto is going to run in tangent with each other. So once you watch this and learn just a little bit, you don't have to deep dive this stuff. You don't have to go out and figure out how a bank settlement layer works and know all the intricacies, but you have to know that that world exists. And that is why blockchain, especially to me, is some of the most incredible stuff I've ever seen. But people are very skeptical to still invest into it because it's had a bad rep for so long. Do you see why? These big institutions have their own systems for doing stuff, and that gives them lots and lots of money. So if another system comes in and is way, way, way more efficient, what do these big banks and stuff like to do? They like to destroy the little guy because they want it all. So crypto has been suppressed for a very long time. And yes, I can understand why somebody would be skeptical to say, Well, I've heard hearing this for 20 years already. Well, Bitcoin's been around for 16, almost 17 years now, and it hasn't been fully adopted yet. That's because it's been butchered and beat like a redheaded stepchild because they didn't want to integrate it because they thought they would lose money. Now the institutions are starting to figure out how they can make money off of integrating blockchain. So that is why I believe that hyper adoption for blockchain is going to come extremely fast because the traditional finance world is going to figure out how they can make money off of it instead of destroying their own business. And that is why I have a buy and hold crypto account that I just continuously add to these projects that are going to make the financial world in the future more efficient. And yeah, one day we're just going to kind of wake up and go, you're not going to really see most of the time what crypto is doing. So there's the problem with the thinking. Most people think that crypto is just cashless. Like it's just completely 100% digital and there's nothing physical. Well, yeah, I mean crypto is digital, but we don't have to have a cashless society. So there's little argument for because people are like cash. It's going to take a while for cash to be completely phased out. People still like to hold things. I mean, even a credit card is a physical card, but it's a digital transaction. So when we can make everything on the base layer more efficient, everything runs quicker and better. So that's why I'm extremely bullish on crypto in itself. That's why Bitcoin has an incredible use case because it settles everything like that instead of having to be verified by 9 million people that don't agree with each other. That's the simplest way I can put it. Now, I know this video is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, but there's your in-depth like analysis on why Bitcoin has a use case and a major, massive one. That's the reason this asset has gone from a penny to 100 grand. And this is the reason why it will continuously go up and up and up. Plus, it's also a store of value. So Bitcoin doesn't just settle, it also acts like gold as a store of value. So it has two different properties. Massive, massive use case. So Bitcoin is your big boy. It's never going to go away. It's not going to go to zero. So it's going to a million. Actually, I think it's going to 10 million. I think that takes quite some time. But that's why these projects are going to be good. So once you understand that, you can understand what projects should do well in the future. And then tokenization is going to be huge. So I have several projects that I own for tokenization because that just makes everything, yet again, faster, more efficient. And I'm not even going to break down tokenization. Tom Lee actually broke it down in a video and it was brilliant. It's like a 10-minute video, I think. And I highly recommend watching that. But there it is. Bitcoin's use case. Stable coins, crypto, Ethereum, Solana. It's all going to be absolutely amazing. Now, are there going to be some ups and downs? Is there volatility? Yeah, because it's changing everything. And people are slow to integrate that. But once it starts to get integrated with this AI, just like AI, I mean, just in the last 2 years is kind of when AI has started to kind of pop up and it's freaking taken off. I mean, videos, memes, you can make characters almost instantly, and it's putting a lot of things out of business. So it's threatening business models, but that's not a bad thing. And I believe that crypto is the AI of the financial world that most people don't see. So that's why I've been thankful that crypto hasn't just absolutely skyrocketed this year. I mean, there's a part of me that got my account a little bit hit because I was expecting it to move quicker than it did. But I also get to stack sats, stack shares. And that's very important. Stacking ownership in amazing assets. So All right, I've rambled on enough. That's my Bitcoin use case for the day. I'm going to go watch the Ohio State Michigan game here soon. I don't really watch college ball that much, but I like hanging out with friends and stuff. But yeah, so there's your use case for Bitcoin, and it's a big one.